Hello and welcome to the matchup presented by Unibet alongside Dale Lally and Matt Williamson, who you hear every day on Steelers Nation Radio. The Drive, I'm Rob King. Thanks very much for being with us. We're getting you ready for the 9-7 Steelers visiting the 13-3 Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have locked up the top seed in the AFC. They've probably established themselves as the team to beat in all the NFL. Maybe they won Lamar Jackson, the MVP, last week. Of course, he had a lot to do with that himself, Lamar Jackson, so we don't expect to see him this week. So they're going to rest a lot of their regulars. The Steelers, meanwhile, they're looking to clinch a playoff spot, get into the playoffs themselves. They're going to need some help, though, along the way.
Yeah, and the easiest path to do that is to win this game and then, either have the Indianapolis-Houston game, which is later that night, end in a tie. Not particularly all that likely. Or then you have Buffalo lose or Jacksonville loses. Win the game. There's also one scenario that they get in if they lose the game.
Yeah, and that's a convoluted path, obviously, but the NFL does such a good job with their scheduling too. I mean, the Steelers get to play a standalone game to start the last week of the season. Then you sit back and hope for the best, but I mean, all they can control is winning in Baltimore, which seems very possible. And you're rooting for two home teams in the NFL, which works to their advantage as well.
Right, and you're looking at a Steelers team that's one of only three teams to have beaten the Ravens this season. So we'll talk about what they did defensively against the Ravens coming up. Let's begin with the offense. And Mason Rudolph has looked very good at the controls for the Steelers, but you want to start with the running game and Najee Harris.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a game where, if you look at the Steelers in their wins, they've averaged 167.8 rushing yards per game. In their losses, it's 114.5. More tellingly, though, in their wins, Najee Harris averages 16.7 carries for 72 yards, and he scored all 7 of his touchdowns. When they lose, it's 11.3 yards, or three attempts, I should say, for 39 yards and no touchdowns. So Najee Harris right now needs 77 yards to get to 1,000 for the season. If he gets to 1,000 yards this season, the Steelers win this game.
Like it. Statistically, that's a good matchup. And, they had on Good Morning Football, they had the angry run of the week, right? And so this last week they went Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris. Yeah. And Najee Harris won the angry award, but these guys running hard and running effectively for the Steelers.
100%. And the line did a great job blocking for him, but a very, very high percentage of Harris's runs came after first contact. I thought he really set the tone for the whole team. And frankly, we've been doing the show now, 17 weeks. I feel like we could start every show with Steelers running game is the foundation for the whole team.
Right. Well, now we're going to talk about your key, which is very alliterative. Matt has Mason's matchup against Michael McDonald. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Mason's momentum keeps moving against Mike McDonald. A lot of M's in there, whatever. Keep Mason rolling along is basically it. And he's played phenomenal. I mean, he's done more than what's asked of him. His accuracy's great, the way he layers the football, the deep ball. He's not making a lot of mistakes. He just needs to keep it up. And as you mentioned to start the show, I'm sure there will be some Ravens defenders who are watching from the sidelines or inactive, but still, McDonald's a phenomenal defensive coordinator that might be a head coach next year. He's not taking the week off, and those depth guys are here to make some plays, make a name for themselves.
And we're seeing these completions to George Pickens, and he's a guy, obviously, Dale, that you have to factor into this when you talk about the passing game as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first matchup against the Ravens, the Steelers won that 17-10. And that was without Deontay Johnson on the field, and Pickens really kind of took that game over. 6 catches for over 100 yards, a touchdown. And that was when the Ravens were at full strength, basically, on defense. They were missing a couple guys here and there. So he's been a factor a lot this season, but it's really kind of taken off with Mason Rudolph out there. He's averaging like 27 yards a catch with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I'm not certain, but that's pretty good, I believe.
Pretty good, yeah.
He's put up great numbers. And look, I think we all think that this has the potential to be a close game, right? Because the Ravens are not going to play a lot of their regulars. They still have a very good defense. So my key is leave Stone unturned. That's Geno Stone, the Newcastle product, who has 7 interceptions. That's second in the NFL. The Ravens turn the ball over a lot. They lead the league with 29 turnovers. This strikes me, guys, as the kind of game in which if the Ravens win the turnover battle, that's what they're probably looking to do. Play good special teams, win the turnover battle. If they do those things, I think that could be a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, and if you look at, they've blown out a lot of teams, a lot of good teams as well, and that's been a major factor in it. And the way that the Steelers won that game against them earlier in the season is they turned the Ravens over and won that battle. That 10 points that the Steelers allowed in that game is easily Baltimore's lowest output of the season. You still only put 17 points on the board against that defense. It's really good, and it doesn't seem to matter who's in there. They've played a lot of games this year with a lot of moving pieces because of injuries, particularly early in the season. So I would expect, I'm like you, I expect this to be a pretty close game.
And I think, Dale, you bring up a great point because, Matt, they've played, we talk about complementary football, right? You turn the ball over and they turn those into scores. And we saw that against the 49ers game, in which I thought the 49ers outplayed him in the first half. You look at the final score, and they got thumped.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, and even with the Dolphins, is to be able to turn those momentum-swinging plays into more points offensively.
100%. And back to Geno Stone, too. They play an awful lot of nickel, big nickel with 3 safeties on the field. They lead the league in turnover differentials, you guys mentioned. But in their losses, they have a lot of fumbles. And the other thing, too, that I meant to mention before when we were talking about Najee, over the last 6 weeks, month and a half, their run defense has been a little questionable. And so when you look at their losses, they've had a lot of fumbles, and they're going to have some replacement players out there. So there's going to be opportunities. You can't let it get away from you. This team starts steamrolling. That's to your point. You start rolling downhill, you get behind against these guys, it could be a problem.
And we don't know for sure exactly who's going to sit. You would think Kyle Hamilton, which would mean Geno Stone would be out there. Hamilton nursing a knee injury, important on their defense. We'll see, obviously, come Saturday night. It is time for this week's Yins Chat, your opportunity to answer some Steelers trivia, make game day picks for an opportunity to win signed helmets, jerseys, footballs, even a trip to the Super Bowl. Log into the Steelers mobile app now, play for a chance to win this week's prize. That's an autographed TJ Watt jersey. And here is the question. Mason Rudolph passing yards over under 280 and a half. I'm going to let you guys go first this time, and I'm going to go last. What do you got, Dale?
You know, I'm going to look at this kind of like I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball that much. Let's put it this way. I think the over-under should be 60 combined rushing attempts for the two teams. I'm going to go under that number.
I'm going under as well. I mean, maybe they hit a big one to Pickens. That's been a theme, obviously. He's got a bunch of long completions from Rudolph. But I think the Steelers want to run the ball. That's the foundation of who they are. And frankly, if Rudolph is over 280 without big explosives, it might be a bunch of junk yards at the end. So I think it's
Which
under.
we don't want to see.
Exactly, exactly.
And just to be different, because I'm going to go over.
Okay.
For no other reason than to be different. And maybe they're going to keep rolling. It's still stuck in my mind is that play right after the 2-minute warning when they put the ball in Rudolph's hands, went to Pickens this past week and said, hey, this could win us the game. So maybe the confidence to continue to throw the ball down the field. So I'll go with the over. We still have more to come here on the matchup presented by Unibet. Up next, we'll take a look at the Steelers' defense against the offense of the Baltimore Ravens.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Welcome back to the matchup presented by Unibet alongside Dale Lally and Matt Williamson. I'm Rob King. We thank you for being with us as we get you ready for the 9-7 Steelers taking on the 13-3 Ravens in Baltimore. And I think, there's the temptation for a lot of fans to say, well, the Steelers are going to win this one because the Ravens are sitting a lot of the regulars. Well, you only have to go back in Steelers history, not to 2004. Remember, the Steelers went up to Buffalo. Buffalo had to win that game to get into the playoffs. Willie Parker started at running back. That was his coming out party, really. Steelers used a bunch of reserves, won that game 29-24, a game Buffalo had to win. 2019, the Steelers facing kind of a must-win situation in Baltimore with Devlin Hodges at quarterback. The Ravens, with their backup, 6 Pro Bowlers sitting in that game, they were able to win. So just because they're not playing their top players doesn't mean that this Ravens team isn't good, capable, and eager to prove that they can still beat their arch rival in the Steelers.
It's still a rivalry game, and so you never want to just say, oh, we're going to let our rival win. And history shows us that over the course of this series that it's typically a 3-point game one way or the other. It's at least a 1-score game one way or the other. So, yeah, you can't take this team lightly. You can't take this game lightly if you're the Steelers. You have to go out there and take care of business.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of reserves on this roster, a deep roster, that are hoping to be the next Willie Parker. They can't wait to get an opportunity. Someone really good's ahead of them on the depth chart. Now it's my turn to shine, whether it's going to be with the Ravens in the future or when they hit free agency or whatever. And don't forget, this franchise, more than any in the league, they really covet preseason wins. Like, they don't give any wins away for free.
Right, and they're not 13-3 by accident.
Exactly.
Not because they have 22 good players. They have more than that, and the Steelers will see a number of those coming up on Saturday night.
And they're not resting any of the coaching staff.
Yes, that's right. Now, the Ravens are 0-2 in this score, under 20 points. Of course, a lot of teams don't have a winning record, and they're under 20 points. Steelers were one of the teams to hold them under 20. Did the best defensive job of any team the Ravens have played. So, for me, my key as we look at the matchups this week is just to win the battle up front. I don't know how many offensive linemen the Ravens are going to sit, but this is a game in which, we still don't know about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Hopefully, you'll get a Landon Roberts back in this game, but I want to see that front five dominate, and particularly in the running game. Look, there's no Lamar Jackson. We know that. He's their leading runner, but Huntley's a guy, Tyler Huntley. He ran for 72 yards against the Steelers a couple years ago, so he's capable of running. I just think this is going to be the key matchup defensively.
Yeah, that's where it starts all the time, every game for the Steelers, because that's the strength of the defense. Obviously, you look at that second and third level, they've been missing some guys here and there. So you need that front five, as it were, to go out there and hold the line of scrimmage, shut down the running game, and that allows you to get after the quarterback.
And they have some stars up front. Led by T.J. Watt, too. He's trying to get the sack title and maybe Defensive Player of the Year. There's a lot of veterans that have been around the block, understand the severity of this game. You would think that their best game is coming here.
Yeah, and it's funny because Lamar Jackson he's sitting on the Player of the Year award, right? He's not going to play this game. T.J. Watt could still win that, which leads to your topic, your key here, which is to hit the quarterback.
Hit the quarterback. So if you watch whenever they play against Lamar, who I understand isn't playing, they go out of their way to make sure they hit him, whether it's a run game, a second after he throws the football. I'm sure that same strategy is going to exist here, even though the offense is structured differently. You mentioned it. Huntley is a good running quarterback. The other thing about Huntley is if you look at his pass attempts versus sacks he's taken in his career, it's a really, really high ratio. So he's a very sackable quarterback.
And I know that T.J. Watt isn't out there to win the Defensive Player of the Year, right? That's not his number one goal. But, he is tied with Trey Hendrickson for the most sacks in the league with 17. He's led the league twice before. This could be an opportunity for him in a must-win game for the Steelers to maybe make a statement and obviously help them win the game by having a big game as well.
Yeah, those go hand in hand. If T.J. Watt has a big game, typically you win the football game because he's making game-changing plays. And, it's just a way to control things. And to Matt's point, that's one of the reasons why the Steelers have had so much success against Lamar Jackson is they hit him every chance they get. When Mike Tomlin talked about it earlier in the week, he said, hey, we respect him. Well, part of that respect is making sure that somebody is in charge of hitting him on every single play. And you don't see that with a lot of teams. A lot of times you'll see Lamar start to scramble, and the same thing with Huntley with these scrambling quarterbacks. And teams are afraid to tackle them because they don't want to draw a flag. The Steelers look at it a different way. They're like, no, he's a runner. We're going to hit him.
Right. Well, they've done a good job against Lamar Jackson over the years, for sure. And that, again, let's tie in something with your key. We talked about the turnovers, and you feel like if the Ravens can make a big play, turn the ball over, but your key is make that big play. Don't allow them to make the big play offensively.
Yeah, if you look at Huntley's, his career numbers, and he's started enough games now that, you kind of have a good feel of what he is. He averages 5.8 yards per pass attempt, which is not good. So you can't allow them to get an easy score. They're going to try to matriculate the ball down the field. They're going to try. It's going to be a lot of runs. It's going to be a lot of short passes. You've got to tackle the catch. You can't allow somebody to catch the ball. Zay Flowers, for example, to catch the ball and turn it into a 40-yard gain, and they get an easy touchdown out of it. You can't allow them to dump the ball off. Justice Hill did that last week against the Dolphins, where they got some chunk plays, just on short throws. You've got to keep those in front of you and make the Ravens go all the way down the field, 10, 12, 14 play drives if they're going to score.
And Matt, I know as we were talking about this game, look, we could talk about the turnovers. Those are big plays. We can talk about Zay Flowers. We're seeing likely here with that one-handed grab and getting into the end zone. We know they can make big plays offensively and defensively. But this is a team that you also have to be extremely wary of in the special teams department.
Oh, yeah, that's a Harbaugh trait. I mean, really, since he took over many moons ago, they are one of the teams year after year that are consistently at the top of the special teams rankings. And having Justin Tucker helps, obviously, but they stress it more than most teams and are more successful in all phases. So in a game like Dale mentioned, that could be a 3-point game as they usually are, that might be the difference.
Here's hoping that we have at least one more matchup, maybe 2, maybe 3 in us, maybe 4 in us, as the Steelers hopefully will be qualifying for the playoffs with a victory and a little help. Again, that wraps things up for the matchup. The 9-7 Steelers visiting the 13-3 Baltimore Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium Saturday at 4:30. For Dale Lally, Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. Thanks for watching the matchup presented by Unibet.